Hello and welcome back to module number 4 called I Think, Therefore I Am. So it's about understanding different thought patterns and how these patterns might influence our child's experience of anxiety. So it's looking at how their thinking makes it more difficult for them to cope with anxiety. And again, this does not just apply to young children, it applies to teenagers and it applies to us as adults as well. So this material is from a course called that I'm doing through Anoka Learning called Scared Kids, delivered by Dr. David Coleman, psychologist. So for the purpose of this session, it was quite a lengthy session, so I broke it up into 2 sections. So this is part 1 that I will give to you today, and tomorrow I'll record part 2 and put that up as a separate section. So today's session is to get a sense of the kinds of thinking patterns that a child could be stuck on and how that would increase their anxiety. And then we can look at ideas on how to help the child challenge and overcome the anxious thought pattern. So we will look at how to help a child realize that they have control over what they choose to think and how they can replace negative thought patterns with positive thoughts. Again, very useful to apply to ourselves as adults as well. At the end of this session in part 2, so not this session today, tomorrow, I will guide you through Dr. Coleman's technique of guided visualization, which is quite good. I did it myself today and it's lovely visualization. So you can use this for yourself, and more importantly, you can teach it to your child to give their brain a kind of a little bit of a break from worry and anxious thinking. Like I said, I did it myself today, and I have to say I was not thinking about anything while doing it, which was great. So it's very difficult for a child to realise that they have conscious thoughts, that they plan each action based on the way they think. So for us as adults, we know that if we're going to act or do a certain thing, we have to think about it first, but a child mightn't have that concept. So Dr. Coleman gives the example of working with children to allow them become aware of how their thoughts influence their actions. So he does this by getting the child to imagine standing on a wall that's taller than themselves. So he explains you're looking down and you have to decide if you're going to jump off the wall. He'll wait a while and then ask the child, well, in your head, did you jump off or not? So they'll either say they did or they didn't. He'll then go back to the experience and get them to see that they made a judgment about how tall the wall was. Was it safe? What would happen if I did jump? Would I hurt myself? And so on. So all of these little thoughts had to come in. So he explained that doing all of these assessments in their heads is in fact their thought process. So this is how we get them to understand that we use our thoughts to decide on actions. However, some thought patterns are unhelpful in allowing us to make decisions. And he looks at these in different styles of patterns. So I'm going to look at 3 of them today. So the first style of pattern we look at is black or white thinking. So we know this one. It's all or nothing. Everybody hates me. The child believes that nobody at all likes them. And they have a sense that there's nothing likable about them. And they believe this is true for one reason or another reason. So what we want to try and get them to see in this style of pattern is that there is a grey area. It's not just black and white. So we ask them questions that might prompt them into thinking a little bit differently. Does thinking like this help you? When you think like this, does it make you feel positive? Could there be any other thing other than what you believe? So these types of questions encourage a child to begin to think around the particular issue rather than having a single focus. It must be black or white. So we're putting different things around the issue rather than focusing on the issue itself. And remember, anxiety loves a focus. So taking the focus off the particular issue is going to automatically reduce the anxiety. Remember, never challenge a child's thinking in a heightened state of anxiety, as the physicality of it would just completely block their rational thinking. So it's better to do it when the child is calm. So saying something like, going to Paul's house, you seemed very anxious, and then go what you experience at that time. And it's done in a calm manner, and that allows them to process it. So their logic brain, left-hand brain, is working a little bit better at processing the information. So another common style of thinking is filtering information. So just focusing on negative events or negative outcomes, or focusing on times that they felt anxious and discarding the positives. So to challenge this, we want to get a child to make more positive statements as well as negative statements. Remember, negative feelings are okay. It's okay to have negative feelings. We all have them. But what we want to do is kind of find a balance. So I'm going to take the example of our current situation with COVID-19, because there is a lot of children confused about what's going on and scared. So they might be anxious about someone getting sick, someone dying, the fact that they're not in school, they're losing connections with friends, all of those things that are going on for them. That they're big, real things for them. So what we might do is get them to look at what they are doing to keep themselves safe. So acknowledging that their fears are there, yeah, 100%, and that we have the same fears, in fact. But what are we doing to keep ourselves safe? How not being in school means they're not spreading the virus, so lots of people aren't catching it. How the majority of people that are getting it are getting better. How the hospitals are ready to help those that are really sick. And looking at what is going well, particularly if they're focusing on what's not going well. Okay, and showing them they have a responsibility. You're washing your hands, you're not meeting your friends, you're doing what you're asked to be doing. So they're playing their part in it. Okay, so that's the positive side of it. They're playing their part. So another common thinking pattern is mind reading. I think we all do this one. So making assumptions about others' point of view. So put your hand in the air if you've never done that one. So for a child with this thought pattern, it's really difficult, particularly if they feel anxious in a situation. They're going to assume that something bad is going to happen. So you're bringing a child with the mind reading style of thinking into a social situation, and they're automatically thinking something bad is going to happen here. So to challenge this, we could ask them, well, could there be another explanation for the way things have turned out? What evidence do they have to support their prediction? So they might have had a once-off experience in a situation, and now they assume that this is the way it's going to be forever. Then we can ask them, how can we test their assumptions? So this is going to be covered in a different module, and the idea of this is about how we get children to practice behavioural experiments. Because if their assumption is that a situation will turn out in one way, then we can invite them to do an experiment to see what would happen if we did it differently. Okay, so it's again, you're taking the focus off the one particular thing and looking how they did it differently. So that's where I'm going to leave it for today. It's a short session, but I think it's when we're looking at thinking patterns and thinking styles, a lot to take in. So what I'd ask you to do after this session is maybe apply those thinking patterns to yourself. So do you have the assumption thinking pattern? Do you assume sometimes? And we can have all of them. We can have black and white thinking or filtering the information. And I know for myself in this current situation, when I first started, I would have filtered a lot of the information and just focused on, okay, this is the amount of people that are dead. This is the amount of people in ICU. I wasn't looking at the figure of people that were getting sick, but only so many hospital admissions. So I was filtering the information that was feeding into the negativity. So I changed that by looking up about people that are recovering from the COVID-19. Again, looking at, like I said, what to do with a child, looking at what am I doing? I'm keeping social distance. I'm following the guidelines. I'm doing everything I can in my power. I've shifted from watching the news at maybe tuning in at lunchtime, watching it at 6, watching it at 9, and I only tune in now at 9. And if we practice these things as adults ourselves, we're more than likely going to apply them to our children. And plus, if our children see that we're doing this, then they're going to more than likely have the ability to be able to do it as well. So thanks for tuning in today. And tomorrow I will see you for part 2 of the section that we covered today. Take care. Bye.